My wife and I, we've been out here for a little over 3 years. Probably the first thing that was out here before we even moved out here was the shipping container right out over here. And this is what we use to, this is what we house all of the stuff that we brought with us from the city. Probably not a whole lot of junk in there except for maybe we got still some art supplies, crafts. Both of us are artists, so that's what's in there mostly. Some of our tools. But this is where we got all of our city junk in. Around this area is where we've kind of been storing stuff from the years we've been here. You'll probably find tiles, bottles, all kinds of things we picked up that we're probably going to use for our build later on. One of the first things that we needed to do out here was put in a gray water system. We live in an RV, and so that water needs to go somewhere. So we dug some basins, and that's where all of our gray water goes. Water from the shower or something like that. That all gets pumped out to our basins. This is one of the first ones we've done. It's a mesquite tree, very nice desert plant. Doesn't require a whole lot of water. Jess has been busy. She's been covering this mound here with rock mulch just to kind of protect the soil. This is looking great. This is the RV we live in, and you can see the gray water comes directly out from here, goes underground, and it feeds into this desert willow. Another good drought-tolerant tree. We got rock mulch around the base. We got wood mulch right around the pit there. Now over here is our first build. It's our first build, so please be kind. Once we moved out here, of course, gray water was a big concern, but also dealing with our personal waste called humanure. You know, when we go, we got to do something with it. So we built this. It's affectionately called the hacienda. But it's just basically a humanure composting system. I set up several bins where we can compost our waste. This pile right here is a finished pile. It's just sitting, kind of stewing for a while before we can take it out of there and use it. This pile is being built on. This is what we're currently using. Going to build on up, probably get about 4 feet high before it's done. Of course, we also have plenty of space for straw storage. Straw is incredibly important for the humanure composting system. You want to use straw, not like hay or anything like that. It's got to be breathable. If you look in the handbook, usually they have like a tiny roof over like a hacienda or something like that. I ended up putting a roof over the entire humanure hacienda system. That way we can collect as much rainwater off of this as possible. I think it's right about 160 square feet, something like that. Not a whole lot of space, but we do get quite a bit of rainwater off of that. I set up 2 IBC totes, one connected to the other, which gives us close to about 500 gallons worth of rainwater storage. As you can see, we're about half there, so we're gonna need some rain pretty soon. Once we got our waste kind of dealing with, we needed power. So we ended up building this shed. I built this shed larger than we needed so we could have extra storage, but this also houses the equipment for our solar. Kind of an experimental building. Mainly it's a timber frame type of construction, and then we filled it out with a mixture of sort of mud and chopped paper. And we just mixed that all up together. We just kind of filled it in with that. Works pretty well. It's a nice little shed. We like it. Of course, I added gutters up along here as well so that we could collect water off of here. Same amount of catchment as the hacienda, but we got 1 tote here set up. Gives us a little bit extra water. You can never have too much water when you're solely on rainwater here in the desert. I'll take you inside. You can see all the fancy solar equipment. So this is all of our solar equipment. This is what powers us in the RV. Eventually all this will be used to power the house as well. From the panels, all that power goes into our charge controller over here. We have 2 inverters here that are stacked. So if one starts drawing too much power, the other one will kick in and we can double the output capability. I think 7,000 running watts approximately. Right here we have 4 Tesla batteries. They're all hooked together, which gives us about approximately 20 kilowatt hours worth of storage. All that goes right here into the combiner box, through the inverters, and then out through these panels over here. And then we just run the wiring to where we need it. But a small system, but it's been pretty much all we need out here. We actually don't use a whole lot of power out here. It's not the cheapest as far as batteries go, but at the time we were able to find a pretty nice deal on used electric car batteries. So like if you're going to get new lithium ion batteries for solar, those things can be really expensive. So I was able to pick these up relatively cheap, very cheap compared to newer batteries. And once those were hooked up, lithium ion is the way to go. Absolutely no trouble at all with them. They're just plug and play and you never have to worry about them. Whereas like, let's say your lead acid batteries, cheaper, but you constantly need to kind of check up on them, make sure the water levels are topped off. So these things have been absolutely fantastic. Solar can be intimidating, especially starting out. I actually had a little bit of help wiring all this stuff together. It would have taken me forever. Luckily, I had a friend come down, help me put all this stuff together. Much better with electrical than I am. But really, this stuff, once you see it all come together, it's very easy. There's only one way this stuff can really be wired together. And now that I've seen it put together, it's a lot easier. But there's so much information out there, books, videos. Like if you are looking to put together a solar system, it's never been a better time to do it. Prices are coming down. There's so much information out there. Very easy to find. So we have 15 320 watt panels. This right here is probably the second thing I built out of the hacienda over there. And this needs to be redone. I originally put this together as a sort of like a temporary build because we weren't sure if all this solar stuff had to move once we put in the house. But apparently it doesn't have to move. It can stay right there. So eventually I'm going to rebuild this, make it sturdier and everything like that. But right now it's worked for us as a temporary thing. And this wiring I did do by myself. Wiring these solar panels is super easy. Just connect a couple of wires and they're almost good to go. But these 15 panels is all we use, and it's been absolutely fantastic. More than enough for my wife and I out here. You know, people keep asking us if we're going to add more solar, more power and stuff like that, but eventually we kind of want to reduce our needs for electricity. So this will be more than enough for everything we'll need out here. So I got these facing southwards, true south, not just magnetic south, to really get the full efficiency of the sun out here. And we live in southern Arizona, so sun is abundant here. That's why we went with solar versus wind, even though we get plenty of wind. We get much more sun. You can always rely on the sun. When these things are kicking full gear, let's say noon, it's constantly pulling in 3,000 watts of energy. In the maximum sun, we're almost getting way more energy than we need. Figure running an air conditioner or something like that might draw 1,500 to 1,600 watts. So we can easily run an air conditioner in the middle of the summer and we're still pulling in another 1,500 watts or so while that thing's running. Plenty of energy for running the microwave. Of course, running the microwave, you don't want to run too much more if the air conditioner and the microwave are going at the same time. The RV itself can only handle about 3,000 watts going into the trailer before that blows the fuse. Actually, the solar system can handle more energy than the RV that we're living in. Water is incredibly important out here, well, anywhere, but especially here in the desert. We don't have a well or anything like that. We are 100% on rainwater. One of the first things we had in here were the delivery of these water tanks, 2 of them. And they got about 2,500 gallon capacity each. A little bit less because I made some modifications to them. But this is our main water storage for right now while we're living in the RV. I built a, we'll check it out later, but I built a rain roof, which we collect water off of, and that water funnels into these tanks directly. And then we pump water from here into the RV or wherever we might need it. But these 2 tanks has been really our main source of water for whether we need for water for cooking or bathing, or anything inside the trailer. This is the water we use. Drinking water, all that comes from here. Right now I put in, occasionally after a rain or after the monsoon, I might put in just a little bit of chemical treatment just to kind of shock the water. But we also run it through a couple of filters, an inline filter before going into the RV. And then for drinking water especially, we run it through a Berkey to get it perfectly clear. And it's probably some of the best drinking water you've ever had. We've actually had people out here and they comment on how nice our water is. Then when we tell them it's rainwater, they don't believe it. They're like, that's no way. So since we got the water tanks, we needed something to catch the rain. I was looking at a lot of different possibilities, and I decided to go with a roof, kind of like a large carport type thing, because out here in the desert, shade is absolutely invaluable. So I thought, kind of mix a couple of things. Not only can we catch rainwater off of this, but it's a great place for us to kind of get out of the sun while we're working. So this thing is like 110 feet long and 20 feet wide, 2,200 square feet, which pretty much means for every 1 inch of rain, we'll get roughly 1,300 gallons of water. And that's been absolutely plenty of water for us, and way more water than we can even contain in those 2 poly tanks. I ended up redoing these gutters a couple of times, but I finally got a gutter set up that really works for us. It doesn't have as much slope as I would like because it's so long, so it's fairly level. And since it's so level, I ran a 4-inch PVC going from one end to the other just so that those gutters drain as quickly as possible and that the weight of the water doesn't sit in those gutters, and it drains super fast right into those poly tanks, getting every single drop. Now, a lot of people, when they set up a rainwater harvesting system, they'll put in a first flush system. We did have that originally, but I ended up taking it out just for efficiency's sake and making sure we get every last bit of water. We don't have a whole lot of trees out here, so I really didn't feel the need to put in a first flush system. We got coverings over all of our pipe entrances, so no debris is going to get in there, no bugs are going to get in there. All that's perfectly safe. If you're harvesting rainwater, catchment is incredibly important. People don't quite understand quite how much rain falls in like a rainstorm. Some of our biggest storms, maybe we'll get 2 to 3 inches, which is nothing compared to the other areas of this country. And like, let's say a couple of inches falls, that's just in our catchment area, probably getting like 2,000 to 3,000 gallons of water. When you're living in the city and you can just turn on the faucet and you can have as much water as you want, you don't really worry about like kind of budgeting and stuff like that. We do have to budget water a little bit, kind of have to be conscious of that. That's one reason why we use like a human manure composting system versus like a septic tank, because that will use so much less water when you're not having to constantly flush and use a toilet for that. So this has been plenty of water for our needs. With the poly tanks, clearly that wasn't nearly enough water. I mean, it's enough water for us as our needs right now, but as we keep growing and expanding, as we're growing more food, as we might have more animals out here, we're going to need more water. And so that prompted us to do one of our first Earthbag projects, is this massive cistern over here. You know, the best advice is to start small, but we ended up building a giant cistern. Our roof right now pumps right into the poly tanks, but when it overflows, it'll overflow into this cistern. Eventually, when we're done with the poly tanks, we'll pump it right into this cistern. But this is an Earthbag cistern. It goes 5 feet underground and 3 feet above ground. Around the cistern, because we weren't sure what the pressure would be like, on the above ground portion, we ended up building a gabion to give it a little extra support. So these walls are probably about 3 feet thick above the ground. And then we ended up putting a ferro cement roof over it. The water catchment on here is fairly simple. When we pump water in here, we've got little entrances right along the edges that's all screened off. And when water lands on here or comes from the roof, it goes in through these various ports around the cistern, and then it'll flow right inside there. But this thing is massive. I think it's 17-foot interior diameter and about 8 feet total height. So it holds just under 14,000 gallons of water. A massive build, but it really gave us a feel for working with Earthbags, which is kind of our chosen material for our house. So it got us a lot of experience with that, and a nice source of water for us for our future use. When we had the house site dug out, we also dug a trench, so when we get water to our future house, it all goes underground, and we'll be able to pump that water from one of our underground rooms. But we got a valve in this box over here that we can use to turn the water on and off. We'll also have, eventually down the road, we'll have a valve inside that underground room, so we'll have multiple points to be able to turn that water on and off, just in case we need to make any adjustments, any changes, any repairs.
As an independent team of filmmakers, we love producing documentaries for artisans of all trades, honoring skill, passion, and determination. So whether you're a garage baker, homegrown mycologist, backyard farmer, or off-grid homesteader, send us a message and share your story with the world.
So as I was building the roof, my wife was busy building this garden / chicken coop. Now, we're not growing a ton of food just yet. Eventually we want to expand that out and grow and raise most of the food we have out here. So this is kind of like just a small garden, just to kind of get used to growing out here in this particular environment. You know, we're from central Arizona originally, so we had some experience growing out here, but even just in the southern part of the state, it's a whole different ball game as we get much colder temperatures in central Arizona and a much different soil, so we wanted to get used to that. So this house is just a small garden. We're growing a little bit here, mainly some herbs and stuff like that. And in the back, that's where we got our chickens, and we actually brought them from the city. You know, that's called the gateway animal. Usually you start with your chickens and then you start getting more animals. So we got the chickens. Right now we're just kind of using them for eggs. They're small chickens, so we just get tiny eggs. But it's a little something. Right over here is the start of our biggest, most massive project yet, our house build. And you know, we were super excited to get started on this, to break the ground on this, and to get started on our forever home. Yeah, we've been living in that RV now for a few years, and although we don't mind the tight space of the RV, it'll just be nice having a place of our own where we've designed sort of the space, and yeah, it's just our own place that we built with our hands. We're just excited. The house will consist of 4 parts eventually. We started with 2 underground rooms. This is our first underground room, and it's actually a root cellar. This is actually goes down approximately 7 to 8 feet underground. It's just sort of like a circle of earth bags that we built around there as a wall. And then we just built sort of like a timber frame, floor, roof above that. Eventually this will have an earth bag dome above that, much like we have over here. But this is kind of where we want to store sort of like anything we grow, and it'll be kind of food storage. If you're trying to be self-sufficient, self-sustainable, food storage is an absolute must. We wanted to go underground with that just to keep those temperatures much more stable. And we think it'll be absolutely perfect for that. And this right here is our first earth bag dome. 20-foot interior diameter, and of course as wide as your earth bag dome needs to be. It needs to be exactly as tall. So this thing is probably at least 20 feet tall, probably 21 to 22 feet tall by it's all said and done. But we got the dome built, but it still has a lot more to do. We got a cob exterior on here to protect the bags. You don't want those bags exposed to sunlight for too long because that UV radiation will break them down. You could kind of see some deterioration on the inside. I'll show you that. All right. Man. I tell you, living in a dome is a very unique experience. Well, we're not living in here yet, but I mean, once this dome was built, there's just a different energy, a different vibe to it, versus like your typical kind of square living and everything like that. The sound is real different, totally different feel to it. We can't wait until we actually get to move into here, but obviously still a lot of work. A lot of work building this, and still a lot of work to finish it. So earth bag construction is basically subsoil. You want to dig down like at least a foot into the ground, and it's basically earth, sand, rocks, whatever it is. You don't want any organic matter in there, and it's filled into usually a woven polypropylene bag. We ended up going with single bags here, but you can use super adobe, which is kind of like a tube-like material. And then you just basically keep stacking them. It's just the bags. Then you tamp it, you fill it, you tamp it, put barbed wire over it. That barbed wire acts as sort of like a glue, holding the bags together so they don't end up slipping or anything like that. Then you put your next layer on top of that, tamp it, and then everything becomes tight, solid. With earth bag construction, you can build them in squares or something like that. Really, you can use your imagination, but a round structure is always going to be your most solid type of structure. And then if you build a dome, it's like the most solid thing you can build, especially with earth bags. So that's what we went with. We ended up going with trying to do the most efficient, strongest build we could. So this is something you really don't want to see when building with earth bags. As you can see, since it took us so long to build this, it got a little bit too much light exposure in some areas, and this is what will happen to the bags. So some of this material along the edges were a little looser, so some of that material fell out, but you can see kind of like the soil and the rocks in here. All this material kind of right in the middle, that's going to be much more solid than some of this other stuff. But either way, you don't want these bags deteriorating if you can. They're not super important to the solidity of the whole build once it's done, but better to have it than not have it. It acts as sort of like a mechanical hold on everything, keeping everything together. But eventually, we'll get this all covered up. All these bags will be covered with more dirt and plaster, and it'll look amazing when it's done. At least that's the idea. So these bags, they are filled with the soil right here on the property. These two underground rooms that we had dug out and the underground area for the cistern, all of that dirt is used for the construction of this thing. And that dirt has supplied probably most of our build. I think we're probably going to run out of that dirt eventually, and at that point we might have someone come back out here and we eventually plan on putting in some in-ground greenhouses, and we'll be using that to grow more food, and then we'll use that material to finish building that second dome. We'll see how long this dirt that we have lasts. All these bags filled right from the soil, right from the dirt from where we're standing right now. It's wild to think about. So there's a lot of different types of earthen styles you can build. We ended up going with earth bags because of the cost efficiency. So building with earth bags can be incredibly cheap. You know, each of these bags maybe costs 20 to 25 cents. So I mean, like, each of those underground portions were probably like maybe $100 worth of earth bags. This thing maybe $300 worth of earth bags. Not too bad, especially when you consider lumber prices are right now. Building with bags and dirt is just, for us, it was the way to go. We did add some lumber, so that drove up the costs a little bit, but earth bags are incredibly nice for, you know, usually when you build a house, you want to think of insulation to help regulate the temperatures. Although earth bags are very poor insulators, they have a lot of thermal mass. Now these walls are 2 feet thick. So if you think about a 1 foot thick wall, 12 inches of earth, that'll give you about 12 hours worth of sort of like heating and cooling. So that wall will sort of heat up during the day, and then at night it'll release that heat. So these walls are 24 inches thick, which will help regulate those temperatures even more. We're excited about this upcoming summer will be our first summer with this dome being built, and we're excited to see what those temperatures we get. We've already been testing out some of the temperatures up here and in the underground portion, and we've been noticing like a 20-degree difference right now between what it is like outside and inside the dome. So if we can have this house so where we don't have to run any kind of air conditioning in the summer, maybe just some fans going just to help circulate the air. I mean, so much less power, so much more efficient. My wife and I have been constructing this ourselves for the most part. 2 people have built this entire thing. You know, it's not out of the reach of anyone that wants to kind of do this type of construction. More hands obviously make for lighter work, but you know, it's not impossible for 1 or 2 people. Maybe you want to consider the size a little bit, maybe go a little bit smaller if you and another person are just doing it alone. But clearly, even 2 people, this is one of the biggest domes you can make, and we did it. A little bit more than just an earth bag dome, though. We've also added what I like to call a floating loft. So that'll give us the advantage of kind of using some of this upper space. I mean, this thing is 20 feet tall. So we added a loft up there where my wife can kind of, she's already got plans for that, using that for an art space where she can kind of create. So she's already got that. So of course, all of the dirt that we had for this is dug out of these underground spaces. Under here is where we plan to have our bedroom. Right now, I just got a small hole cut into the floor. It's all we need right now. It's kind of my idea to have a bedroom underground. So when you're sleeping, it'll be like as dark as it could possibly get. The temperatures will be nice and cool. Perfect for sleeping weather. That's what I like. Dark, cool, perfect for sleeping. I imagine we probably won't be able to hear a thing down there. Not that we get a whole lot of traffic or anything out this far in the desert, but I can't wait. I can't wait to try it out. All right. Let's head down into the dungeon. This space will get bigger eventually. So this will eventually be our bedroom, and building that dome took us about a year. So this room has been sealed for about a year. So when we finally cut into the floorboards over here and made our way down here, it was sort of this magical, emotional experience. Because this was like the third Earthbag construction we did. And so it was amazing to see how well it held up, because we hadn't laid eyes on this room for that year. And we were just really impressed with how everything held up. It's almost exactly the way it was when we sealed it up. Very, very simple construction. It's just basically a cylinder. And this will give you a really good idea of just how those bags are laid. Each course stacked right on top of the next, barbed wire in between. You could say we have some wood boards in here, which that'll be used for putting in like electrical outlets and everything like that, switches. We have gravel down here right now, but eventually we'll be putting an earthen floor above the gravel. Earth along the walls to cover up those bags, even though no sunlight's going to get in here, so we could even just leave the bags exposed, but yeah. You just want to have a bunch of bare bags. That's no fun. We'll add that personal touch once we finish it off down here. This was exposed while we were building. The dome wasn't complete during the heavy monsoon rain, so we did probably get a bunch of water down here. It's a little bit moist. You can feel that moisture in the air, but I think the root cellar will have been a lot more protected. And for stairs to get down here is just basically wood planks that we stuck into the bags as we were building up those layers. So the stairs are just sort of built right into the wall, which I kind of like. We might end up redoing this eventually, maybe doing cob stairs. We have a dog. The dog probably won't be able to navigate these stairs. He's kind of an older dog, so we'll eventually be redoing these. Barbed wire goes in between these rows of bags, and there's barbed wire in between each of these rows. You'll notice chicken wire or a stucco mesh over some of these bags, and we purposely added it on to any kind of bags that would that we would need to add cob onto like onto a surface that's sort of like going above anything. Cob doesn't want to stick on a surface that directly above the ground. So this will just sort of hold that cob steady, and we'll be able to get it onto some of these surfaces that aren't exactly horizontal. Chicken wire, very important on all your doors and windows. The windows is actually something that I'd like to point out, because we have maybe one sort of conventional window on the south side, and then the rest of the windows are sort of just filled in with cob, which is just a mixture of earth and straw, and bottle bricks, which we put together. We cut those bottles in half, taped them together, stuck them in the cob, and it just provides this sort of like really unique lighting experience. My wife Jess, she really put her heart and soul into each of these windows and really tried a number of different experiments on these, including painting the bottles to give her just the right colors she wanted. She used glass etching on some of these, and this Gothic window, which is our largest, employs like all the different techniques, the paint, the etching, and then she even added a necklace that her mother made as just sort of this really nice finishing touch, and just really made this very personal, her own creation, and I love it. This loft is something we built to sort of take advantage of all this space up here. All these boards, they're actually built right into our walls. So it's supported all the way around by all these earth bags on top of here. We originally had a post that went down to the floor, but we needed to get rid of that post. It was no good. So we actually decided to support it from with these chains going up to these beams up here, and those beams are built right into the wall as well. So it's kind of cool, kind of unique in the fact that it's kind of supported from above and the sides rather than below. As the dome comes in, it cuts out the space quite a bit, but it doesn't need a whole lot of space, especially for what my wife has planned for up here. But as unique as the feeling is down there, it's even more so up here because you can really feel sort of like the weight of these bags sort of like right above your head. And it's a unique experience just seeing these bags stacked right up to the top. It might give you kind of an unsettling feeling unless you kind of know the science behind how these domes are built.
All right, we have all these old used tin cans. We have some old flashing, extra materials from other builds. And we try to reuse, recycled, reclaimed materials whenever we can. It's more sustainable. It saves money a lot of times. And these we're cutting up to use as shingles. They're going to go along the outside of our house. I was looking at some alternatives for roofing materials because we weren't sure quite how we were going to sheathe the outside of the house. And so I saw some people using like cans, soda cans, and different kind of recycled materials. And I thought maybe we could use this. It's not going to go over the whole outside. It's going around the outside of our eaves. And I thought it would be it's kind of a lightweight material and something that's free. So I think it should work well. We moved out here a little over 3 years ago. And at that time, we had no idea quite everything we were getting into, I think. Not a lot of experience building. And so we were thinking, build some things, we'll build a house and move in. It's taken longer than we thought. I think that's okay. We're getting closer to being able to move into our Earthbag home. And I don't know how much longer it's going to be. We might start moving some things in fairly soon. But, it's been a learning process for us. We've had to get used to a different kind of pace, I think, out here and allow ourselves the time to learn and grow and be okay with that. And I'm okay with that. We were looking for a different way of life. And me personally, I was going through a lot of depression and anxiety before we moved out here. And I felt a lot of just isolation, emptiness. I was looking for something more in my life. And once we made the decision to start living a more self-reliant life, living more sustainably, everything changed. My whole world just changed. And, I don't think it was necessarily moving out to the country or, doing all the things we're doing, trying to live in a dirt house. It was making that decision that I wanted to take more control over my life and design a life on my terms and find more of a connection to the world. And that's what I found here. It's a really beautiful thing. So, it's wonderful waking up every morning and knowing that, I look up in the sky and there's the sun. It gives us the light and heat and power that we can live off of. And seeing the clouds in the sky that give us the rain for the water that we need, and just having the earth here that we can use to ground us and support us and build a beautiful home. This is our north-facing bottle window. And basically it's just using some discarded glass bottles. We also have some jugs. The larger ones here are jugs. In the center here, those are microwave plates. And we cut the bottles and we turned them into bricks. And we set them in the wall with some cob. And that gives us some light in there. I think it's really interesting shape. It won't let in hot air or cold air in the winter, and it's a lot more energy efficient than most windows are. There's not going to be air gaps, and there's air inside the bottles too that acts as an insulation, so it's a lot more energy efficient that way. The shingles are just going on the outside of these eaves right here where that screen material is. So this is one of the bags that we've used for our Earthbag building. It's made of woven polypropylene. These are the kind of bags that feed comes in, grains, seeds, a lot of like landscaping type seeds. And we got these bags from a packaging company. They're all misprinted and they would otherwise just be garbage, basically. I kind of like the fact that we can reuse these bags and from something that's disposable to something that's going to be permanent. I think this is something that happens with any kind of printing process. Like there's going to be colors that run or things that aren't lined up properly. And this one's pretty messed up. The text is kind of all over the place. A lot of the bags are going to look like that, but they're perfectly usable for filling with dirt. So we had some holes excavated for our build, and all that material got piled up in these giant piles. One of these piles is behind me right now, and we had multiple other piles that we've already tore through to build what we've built so far. And we have one left. I don't know how far that'll take us. And there's a lot of rocks in them, but we put those rocks to use as well for building. So what we put in these bags is just soil, basically. Some people that build with earth bags, they might stabilize the soil with either cement or lime, depending on what the composition of the soil is. We did not stabilize our soil. We felt that the soil was very stable on its own. It had just the perfect ratio of clay to sand. And when you have just that magical mix, you just add some water, moisten it, and then when you tamp it, it turns into this hard, solid block that's perfect for building. It is very much like making bricks. That might be good there. That's the tricky part. Now we just gotta tamp it.
So last but not least, so this is a bag filled with dirt mixed with water. In order to really get it solidified and turn it into like a brick, that comes to tamping. That's the best part right there.
Then you just have to repeat that hundreds of times and you have a building.
Just that simple. Don't forget the barbed wire. This is the stage where the barbed wire would go across.
Yep.
Hire us to tell your story. As an independent team of filmmakers, we love producing documentaries for artisans of all trades, honoring skill, passion, and determination.
The fruits of our labor literally creates happiness.
Founded in 2020, we harness our collective experience and enthusiasm for storytelling to deliver content that resonates with viewers on every level.
Think big and think outside of the box.
We avoid the constant noise of clickbait news and outrage headlines, instead crafting more intimate narratives that touch on the purpose of life itself. Stories that not only inform but also inspire, whether it's the art of agriculture, the science of fermentation, an innovative garage startup, or the intricacies of off-grid living. We're here to explore it all and invite you to join us in the discovery.
You're just working with what you have at hand instead of having unrealistic expectations.
We know the world is brimming with hidden stories waiting to be told. These are tales of ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
The biggest thing is to realize that there's nothing that you can't do.
Embodying the American spirit that with hard work, dreams really can come true. So whether you're a garage baker, homegrown mycologist, backyard farmer, or off-grid homesteader, send us a message and share your story with the world.